Yo, what's going on everyone, Z-Karma here, and welcome back to another boring math video here in Borderlands 3. Today, I'll be doing a full breakdown of one of Amara's new action skills. This one is called Shooting Star. It is a variation of the Phase Flare, but it works a little different. By the end of this video, you should know exactly how it works and also how to increase the damage to make it stronger. So before I get into this video, if you found it informative or helpful in any way, a like rating is greatly appreciated, and if you want to subscribe for more content, that'll be awesome as well. So let's go ahead and read this. It says, Amara summons an orb of elemental energy that deals constant elemental damage to nearby enemies. Whenever you melee the orb, it causes it to fly forwards to an enemy and damage them, which also increases the amount of overall damage the orb deals. Additionally, the elemental orb continually fires elemental projectiles. So anyways, we have the impact damage of 5688, and then we have the area damage of 1138. This area damage is going to be the constant elemental damage it deals, and that is 20% of the impact damage. So whatever damage we end up having on our action skill after all our build is done, 20% of that will be the constant damage. And also, it shoots out elemental projectiles. Those are also 20% of the overall damage. But these elemental projectiles don't deal splash damage. So it'll be 20% of our overall damage minus the splash bonuses. Anyway, there's also an explosion. This orb explodes at the end of the 26 seconds and deals 3 times the current damage of the orb. Or it can also explode when you melee it a 5th time. So if you melee the orb a 5th time, it's going to fly forward towards enemies and explode, dealing twice the current orb's damage. Anyway, now let me show you how to calculate the orb's initial damage. And this is very simple. You take the impact damage of 5688, and then do your elemental type multiplier. So I have an action skill element as shock, and this dummy has flesh, so I have to multiply by 0.65. That gives me 3697. Now this damage can be further increased by increasing our elemental damage, our splash damage, and our action skill damage. So let's go ahead and get some increases. For our elemental, we're going to get Tempest. That's going to give me a 40% increase to my shock damage. For my splash damage bonuses, I'm getting Arms Deal, which is going to give me a 20% increase. And I'm also going to get Heavy Rain, which is going to increase my splash damage by 35%. So in total, that's a 55% increase to my splash damage. And finally, let's increase our action skill damage. I'm going to be using Admin. This is going to increase my skill damage by 27%. After we apply all those bonuses, the damage of 3697 is going to go up to 10,188. So if I shoot it, 10k. And just so you know, this action skill on Mayhem 10 and 11 does 31 times the damage, or a 3000% increase. So basically you multiply this by 31 to get 315k. And if our orb is currently dealing 315k, 20% of that is going to be the area damage, the constant damage, that's 63k. And the elemental projectiles will also do 20% of that, 63k, minus the splash bonuses, which drops it down to about 42k. And these numbers can easily be a lot higher, so stick around. Now let's increase the orb's impact damage. And how do we do that? Well, it says that every time you melee the orb, it'll increase the overall damage of the orb. So whenever I melee the orb, a portion of my melee damage is going to go to the orb's base damage. However, the way this game calculates this damage is that it's going to add the portion before all the post-stat multipliers. So all the bonuses we applied need to be set aside so we can calculate the orb damage for every single melee. That leaves us with our initial 3697, which was just the 5688 on the skill card multiplied by 0.65, which is shock against flesh. Anyway, we have this number, and for each melee, we will take 10.81% of our melee damage and add it to 3697. So our current melee damage is 4875, 10.81% of that is around 526.98. Now we just add the 526.98 for every single time we melee the orb. And remember, there is a max of 5 melees that we can do before it explodes. So our initial impact is going to be 3697. On our first melee, it's going to go to 4.2k, then 4.7k, then 5.2k, then 5.8k, and finally 6.3k. And now to all these numbers, we can now apply the post-stat multipliers which we set aside. And that is going to give us our 10,188 initial damage, then 11k on our first melee, second time we melee will give us 13k, then 14k, then 15k, and finally 17k. But remember, that is the 5th melee. It's going to explode and give us twice the damage. So let's go ahead and try it and match up the numbers here. Initial one is 10k. Our first melee gives us 11k. Our second melee is going to give us 13k. Third melee gives us 14k. Our fourth melee is going to give us 15k. Now for our 5th melee, remember the 5th melee is going to cause this to explode, and it's actually going to do twice the damage of the current orb's damage. So when I melee it, the current orb's damage is going to go up to 17k, times 2 is going to be the explosion, so about 34k. As you see right there. And then of course on Mayhem 10 or 11, all of these numbers are way higher thanks to melee actually receiving Mayhem scaling. And the end values are also multiplied by 31 because the action skill also receives Mayhem scaling. I do need to stress that all these calculations were done assuming that every time I meleeed the orb, it kept hitting shock against flesh. So quick examples so you can get a better understanding. Let's say that for 3 melees in a row, it hits shock against flesh. But then all of a sudden, on the 4th melee, it actually hits shields. Well, the multiplier for shock against shields is 2.5. So what do we do here? We go back to the original number of 5688. We multiply this by 2.5. That is 14,220. And to that number, we add the amount of melees. So per melee, we were already adding 526.98. So we just do the same thing per melee. And our 4th melee is going to have a base damage of 16k. Then to that number, we apply all the post-stat multipliers and get our damage number. So hope that made sense. Now what I want to do is get some melee increase to test our damage. We're going to get this Psycho Stabber to gain 340% melee damage. We're also going to take Find Your Center, which is going to give us a 100% increase to our melee damage. Then we're going to get Joyful Freedom. This is going to give us a 70% increase to our melee damage. No Mistakes in Nature is going to give us a 65% increase. In total, that is a 575% increase in damage. So we take our base melee damage that was 4875 and multiply it by 6.75, which gives us 32.9k. Then we're going to multiply that by 16 due to Mayhem scaling, and we get 526k. So now let's calculate the damage against each health bar when our action skill element is shock. So for flesh and armor, we're going to take this 5688 multiplied by 0.65 for both flesh and armor. Gives us 3697. For shields, we multiply this by 2.5 and we get 14,220. Those two are going to be our initial impact numbers before all the post-stat multipliers. Anyway, for each melee, we're going to take 10.81% of the 526k, which is 56.9k, and we're going to add that to these numbers. So as you can see, there they are. The top number, of course, is the initial number. Then every number after that is just 56.9k higher. And of course, each one is the amount of times we melee the orb. Anyway, to all these numbers, we can apply all the post-stat multipliers, including the Mayhem scaling. And here are the results. These are the damage numbers you should expect to see. And remember, the constant damage that we're going to tick for is going to be 20% of that. And the elemental projectiles that it shoots out will also do 20% of that, minus the splash damage increases. So anyways guys, with that I wanted to end the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to drop a like on it, as that would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to subscribe to watch more content like this, that'll be awesome as well. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.